Alrighty, so this is part 2 video for the 4.1 part 1 notes. There's a lot of parts, sorry if that's confusing. So we left off on the on your own, and so now together we'll solve out the on your own and then do another example in these part of the notes, and then continue to do some more on your own, which we'll do together. So before leaving you, I told you that you're going to need to be using the inverse operation in order to determine what the variable is equal to, in order to solve these inequalities. And so what you should have done for the first problem is notice that this is a division problem originally, so that means that we're going to need to multiply by a certain number in order to get the variable by itself. And we always multiply or divide or subtract or add the number that are on the same side as the inequality, because that will leave, the same side as the variable, because that will leave the variable by itself. So if this is n divided by 3, which also looks like this, then multiplying by 3 will cancel out the 3 on the top and the 3 on the bottom. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and leave you with just n. The sign, because we divided by the same positive number, is going to still be a less than sign, and then 1 times 3, well, we all know what 1 times 3 is just 3. And so for number 1, you should have solved that n is all values that are less than 3. If we were to graph that, we would find 3 on the number line. N is all values less than 3. So that means it can't equal 3, so we're going to use an open circle. And then values that are less than 3 are going to go to the left of 3. So that's going to be values like 2, 1, 0, -1. All of those values are less than 3. So that would be the solution to number 1. The solution to number 2, originally we have a division problem. As you can see, we have -0 and 5/10 is less than or equal to m divided by 10. M over 10 is the same thing as n divided by 10. So what I'm going to do to both sides, I'm going to multiply. Because it's a division problem, I'm going to need to multiply in order to cancel out those operations and leave the variable by itself. So m divided by 10 times 10, the 10 over the 10 will divide into 1, which is just m, so 1m. The sign stays the same because it's the same positive number. And I'm going to multiply 0 and 5/10 by 10. And just if you don't know this already, just a quick solution to this. If you ever multiply a number by 10, then all you're going to need to do is either add a 0, you know that, 1 times 10 is 10, you add a 0, or 2 times 10 is 20, you take 2, add a 0. But if there's a decimal, what you want to do is you want to move that decimal over one spot. And because it's a positive 10 times a -0 and 5/10, this is going to become a -5. So all we did was move that decimal over one spot. You can think about it as having 50 cents 10 times. If you add 50 cents up 10 times, it's going to give you $5. And the positive times the negative number is a negative number. So this is now -5 is less than or equal to m. I'm going to go ahead and graph that. I'm going to find -5, or I'm going to place a -5. And then it is, so this graph describes the values of m. So values of m. And I should say valid values of m. Valid values of m. And if I read this from left to right, this inequality from left to right, then that says -5. I see the tail first, so -5 is less than or equal to m. But that doesn't describe m for me, so I'm going to read it backwards. I'm going to read it from right to left. And that reads m, and because I see the mouth, m is greater than or equal to -5. So you got to ask yourself, can -5 be a solution? Well, m is greater than or equal to -5, so yes. And then m is values that are greater than -5. Greater than goes to the right. That's values like -4, -3, -2. And so that would be what the graph of number 2 looks like. And then for the very last one, I'm going to write that same thing over here. That was 3, -3 is greater than 2 over 3p. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to put my question section is, what is a reciprocal? What is a reciprocal of a number? What is a reciprocal of a number? And what happens when you multiply reciprocals? So every number, every rational number has a reciprocal. And what we are asking ourselves is what happens when we multiply reciprocals? So going back to this problem, -3 is greater than 2 over 3p. If I wanted to get that p by itself, then because this is technically a division and multiplication problem. 2p over 3 is 2 times p divided by 3. So you can see that there's multiplication and division, or it's 2 divided by 3 times p. But regardless, we have both things going on because a fraction is a division problem, but then a number next to a variable is a multiplication problem. So what we do in these situations is if we want to turn that 2 over 3 into a 1 and leave the p by itself, like we're doing for all of these problems, the sign's going to stay the same. If we want to get that p by itself, then we need to multiply that 2 over 3 by its reciprocal, because multiplying any number by its reciprocal will always get you to 1. And I'll show you why that is right now. So if I have 2 over 3 and I multiply it by its reciprocal, what is the reciprocal of 2 over 3? 3 over 2, just a flipped version of it. And I multiply those two fractions. This is going to be 2 times 3 is 6. And 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 divided by 6, or 6 over 6, is 1. And so this is now a 1p when I multiplied both sides by the reciprocal 3 over 2. And so I'm going to do that same thing over here to the right side. I'm going to multiply by 3 over 2, and then 3 times -3, well, that's -9, and then over 2. That's in its simplest form, but it's improper, so I'm going to turn that into a mixed number. I'll put that solution. I'm going to erase this. Do put that somewhere though, so you know that multiplying by a reciprocal equals 1. I do want you to write that down somewhere. And then -9 over 2, that converts to 4.5 negative is greater than p. Or if you read it backwards, p is less than -4.5. P is all values less than -4.5. Now we're to graph that, I'd put -4 and 5/10, -4.5. And then p is values that are less than -4.5, because you can see that the tail comes first. And so that means that I'm going to use an open circle because it can't equal -4.5. And if it's less than, I'm going to put the arrow to the left. And so that is the solution for the on your own problems. And the next video that you'll watch, we'll go over example 2. And then we'll also go over these on your own problems. We'll do all of them together in our first run.